Hello guys, I hope you're all having a lovely day. And in today's video, I want to talk about something that has been occurring over the last few years to American comics, also known as floppy comics, and how they've just been declining in sales and many comic stores have been closing, and what different factors kind of contribute to why it's just been the last few years. Because up to this point, they were going pretty strong since, action comics, detective comics became popular in the late 30s, and they probably peaked in about the 90s, but were still doing very well in the early 2000s, and then it kind of all just went downhill from there. So the first thing that comes to mind is money, obviously. We're going to look at Detective Comics 27, and this is a reprint. I couldn't find the $1 million copy from 1939. So this comic, it was released in May 1939 though, and at the time it cost 10 cents. But when adjusted for inflation, 10 cents in 1939 is equivalent to $2.09 in 2023. So we'll keep that noted. The next comic I wanted to look at is from a different era. This is from June 1939, Detective Comics 601. Now this cost 75 cents, but when adjusted for inflation, that's $1.86 in 2023. The last comic we're looking at is from a very recent era. This is Detective Comics 1012, and it was released in 2019, so just a few years ago. At the time, it cost $3.99, but even adjusted for inflation, for 2023 dollars, that's $4.65. So we have three just average comics from different eras. I mean, Detective Comics 27, yes, that was the first appearance of Batman, but so it is significant. So we'll just call this Comic 1, $2.09. Comic 2, $1.86. Comic 3, $4.65, which is more than the previous two combined. But that's not all. The first comic has 64 pages. The second comic only has 22 pages, not including advertisements. And the third comic has 20 pages, not including advertisements. So, with that in mind, the calculations come to Comic 1 is 3 cents per page. Comic 2 is about 8 cents per page. And Comic 3 is approximately 23 cents per page. The cost of comics has skyrocketed. They've become more for what it's worth. So with that in mind, another thing that has changed is kind of the overall structure. See, the comic from this era, the Batman story in this is actually only 6 of the pages, and it's shared with other comics by different authors, just short, different little segments. So, the structure is a little bit different. And then as for advertisements, they really only have them in front and back. They're not scattered all throughout random pages. Whereas in these two, it's just Batman's story. At one point, they started having a little segment at the end with someone else. But for the most part, yeah, it's just like 20 pages of Batman. And then as for the advertisements, they are scattered throughout. But since comics were more successful in Book 2's era, and Book 3 era is basically the same, we can't assume that that's the problem. So the last thing that's definitely worth noting is the target audience when it comes to comics is generally teenagers, kids, and if you stop and think for a second, back when comics were more popular, that was a thing that kids would just do in their free time. That's what they had. Nowadays, technology is a very big part of everyone's lives. Social media, all that stuff, video games included, that's kind of taken over. And so, really, it's a matter of what teenagers, kids, or really just anyone does in their free time anymore. And it really seems like the only people collecting comics now are the super fans or the nerds. And I don't mean nerd in a negative way, but they really care about this stuff. It's not your average teenagers don't really do this anymore. Whereas, 15, 20 years ago, even then, it wasn't uncommon. And so at the end of the day, that's kind of what it all breaks down to. But I said one more thing. There's actually another thing out of that. The most popular comics are really the superhero ones, especially Marvel, DC, or even Black Horse comics as well. But nowadays, there's like 10 comic book superhero movies that come out every year. There were still movies back when comics peaked, but they were special. Like they didn't come out very often. Whereas like 2023, for example, I can name so many off the top of my head. There's just like this whole comic book movie overload, and that's what most people recognize all these heroes from. Spider-Man is such a popular character. Most people recognize him from watching the movies, not from reading the Spider-Man comics. That's a big thing. So overall, that's what I thought about this whole situation here. And if you have something else you want to add to that, just let me know down below in the comments. Thank you for watching. And for the month of June, I'm planning on uploading every day. So be sure to check out any other videos if you're interested. Thank you so much for watching. And that's all I've got for you today.